Hi, everyone. Al Dea here. I have a good friend of mine, John Huang, with me today, and we're just going to talk everything related to careers and job searching. Both of us have a lot of experience in terms of our own job searches, but as well as working with other people on their own job searches and their own career development. And so, figured we'd both kind of take a shot at answering some questions that typically come up to both of us through our various channels. And I think this will be kind of fun. So we're going to see where it goes. So I guess maybe just to start, John, thanks for joining me today. Why don't you just maybe give a brief background of who you are and what you do, and then I'll just kind of jump in and ask you some questions to wax and wane poetically on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Al, for having me. I'm always excited to talk about career advice and help new MBA students who are trying to figure out, their next moves and navigate their career journey. So I'm excited to be able to chat with you and answer some questions. So thanks for having me. In terms of my just very quick background, so my most recent role was Director of Community and Growth at a startup called Jobcase. The company, I would call it a LinkedIn for blue collar workers and hourly workers. And it was a really interesting role where I had the opportunity to build out this community platform that allowed job seekers to connect with each other and to ask questions and to get advice. Really played really well with my passion of helping people navigate careers and find job opportunities. And for me, professionally, it was a great career kind of move to allow me to take on a new team, think about building a community product, and really get deeper into more the B2C kind of like marketing aspect of tech. So previously to Jobcase, I had worked for 2 years at Twitter in their marketing strategy and operations group. So our team supported the CMO, and I really love this opportunity because it gave me such a broad set and such a foundational understanding of different aspects of marketing. So not only did I spend my time on more the operations side of things, which is more of the annual planning, the budgeting, building out org structures, and kind of working on the people side of things. But I spent a lot of time actually kind of getting into the weeds with a lot of the marketing teams on the B2B and B2C side. So really getting into like, how do you run campaigns? How do you build a marketing tech infrastructure in the background to enable more effective marketing? And it really opened the door for me to understand, here's how marketing works at a tech company. And just briefly before that, I really didn't know that marketing was going to be a career path. So before I joined Twitter, I spent some time at a small startup called MindSumo, which kind of gave me some experience into marketing and really took this role in growth marketing to discover what marketing is at a tech company, and like really gave me a lot of confidence and experience of how to break into tech and how to really talk about marketing at a tech company. And yeah, like my background, before that didn't even involve marketing or tech. I spent time at Walmart prior or after business school, and then before business school I was in tech consulting at Deloitte. So a bit of a winding journey for me, but I've let my kind of like passion and curiosity kind of steer me towards different areas as I explored, what I'm passionate about and what I'm interested about. So that's what brought me here and where I am today.
Great. Thanks for that background. And, what I think is great about you is that, I think in addition to obviously knowing, having experience at Jobcase, not only the career search and what that's like, but also in terms of navigating, career transitions. So you're very experienced in this field. So I'm kind of, would love to start just what are some of the important things that people should be thinking about and people should be doing, as they think about their career search right now?
I think right now is a very interesting time given, what's going on with, COVID-19 and how that's really impacted how companies are hiring and where, the focus is. I think my advice to anyone job searching right now is to be pretty flexible in terms of, understanding that, your dream companies, your dream roles may not be readily available, but to really understand like what are other opportunities and companies that are still hiring that keeps me on track, that's still relevant or parallel to what I want to do and where I want to go, in terms of like deciding what companies and what roles to look at. I'd say the other big thing is really focusing on more the people aspect of really digging into your network, connecting with people, and really leaning on those relationships to be able to open doors for you and find new opportunities, kind of given that, we're in a very unique environment and that's really challenging right now for a job seeker and someone about to start their job search.
Yeah, no, I think you're right in terms of, being flexible and really looking out there and being thoughtful about where some of those opportunities can kind of come in. So I think those are both really good pieces of advice. Would love to know either from your experience or maybe even what you're seeing right now, what are some of the common mistakes people make when they're going about, applying to jobs? What are the things that they're doing that maybe if they knew better, they wouldn't be doing?
I feel like the biggest mistake that people do is really just blindly applying to positions and hoping that, by playing the numbers game, that they'll find something. It's something that, I've seen frequently just working with others that have gone through the job seeking process. It's a lot of what I see even from my time at JobCase, where I've seen kind of, thousands of job seekers go through this process of just applying to as many places as possible. And, I think if you have the right background that's a perfect fit for a role, then yeah, I think that could work, because I think your resume will show up at the top of a pile when it goes through the system, and you have a better chance of your resume being seen. But I would say for the majority of people that are out there, they're just starting their search and their careers where they haven't spent a lot of time, in a particular role that they're looking for, that strategy isn't as effective. I think that is, the easy route to take, that you feel like you're getting a lot of wins in, but in the long run, you're choosing quantity over quality. And I think that's where I see a lot of kind of common mistakes from that front. I think the other part of it is really kind of not taking time to think and being thoughtful about your story and positioning yourself as you're kind of going through these initial interviews and conversations as well. I think really kind of thinking about like having a vision and a story for yourself where you want to go and how the company fits in is really kind of a crucial part to, making your presence felt in the interview process, and through the application process by, again, really focusing and customizing and personalizing not only your application, but your interactions as you're doing outreach to recruiters or alumni, that, you really take the time to really understand, what is this company doing? How do I fit into this? What are some things that I can talk about that's going to make it an interesting conversation for the person on the other end, versus a generic, hey, I see that you went to University of Michigan as well, would love to get time with you. I feel like those interactions don't go as far. So I would say, those are probably, the two big common ones that I see.
Yeah, no, I would agree with both of those. And I think something for people to remember is that, um, in general, the nice thing about applying to jobs online is that you can find them and they're easy to do. And that's also the challenging thing, because it's easy to find and easy to apply to for you. It also means it's the same for you and all of your friends and your friends'
Right.
friends. And, if we think about what the unemployment numbers look like for the past couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
after people go and put in for their unemployment, a lot of the next thing that they're going to do is probably start pulling up their LinkedIn and start applying to jobs or wherever they are. And so
Right.
not only are you challenged with the fact there's probably less opportunities than there were, but the applicant pool is now significantly higher. And I think that speaks to the point you make about making sure that you're focused and targeting roles that are appropriate based off of your background and your experience and what your goals are, and making sure you have that story to really connect and tell the two together, or else you're going to get, you're going to apply to something and it's probably going to get lost in the pile. And so I think that's a really good point. You can't really spray and pray.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that, to your point, like, you do need to be flexible. And so, yes, like, look for lots of opportunities, but you really only need to be focusing on roles that you really are a fit for. Because the rest is you're just really just going to be going through the motions and applying to things, and not actually giving yourself the best shot at roles that are required for you. On that front, I'm just curious from your perspective. I think LinkedIn's probably one of the easiest places that people will go to look for jobs, but where else should people be looking, whether that's other websites that are out there or just other means and avenues of finding opportunities?
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, again, it's easy to jump on LinkedIn, Indeed, a lot of these job boards where these jobs are readily available. And, it's good to get those kind of quick wins and to feel like you're making progress. But I think if you were to kind of be a little bit more creative and open up and broaden your horizons when it comes to the job search, it really comes back to finding people in your network and reaching out to people that work at these companies and having conversations with them, because oftentimes a lot of these roles that get posted, they may have a candidate already in mind, or these roles may not even exist, but it's a problem in the company that they need to solve. And someone's never gotten around to putting together a job description or a role for it. But if you can find a way to pitch yourself and put some good ideas in place, you know, the, you could actually talk your way into someone creating a role for you. Now that's a little bit more rare, but that's the instance that happened to me at Jobcase, actually, where I had a really interesting background and I saw a lot of opportunities and problems at Jobcase that I felt like I could bring a lot of experience and a lot of ideas to. And having a conversation with the recruiter and eventually the hiring manager, they ended up actually creating a role for me in this community and growth space, because they realized, like, oh yeah, there's a lot of value to solving these problems and going after this opportunity. We just didn't realize there was something out there until you kind of came along and kind of showed like what you had to offer. So I think there's ways to be creative about that. And I'd say, like, for some people that are searching, like, you know expand your horizons to see where you can get experience in the areas that you're interested in. And for me, that could also mean like looking at small startups, working at accelerators if you're interested in tech, to really kind of get your foot in the door. And you may have to make some trade-offs. You may not end up getting a full-time position. You may have to work as like a freelancer or contractor. Your pay may not be as great, but you get your foot in the door, you start getting that experience, and that can actually be incredibly valuable. So don't be afraid to move beyond the job boards, looking at some of these like smaller companies offering your help and just being creative, because I think this unique jobs environment right now is going to make it very challenging, and you have to be very creative to be able to get some good progress.
Yeah, I think those are all great pieces of advice in terms of thinking about innovative ways to get involved and to find opportunities, particularly whether that's because there are so many jobs that never get posted to job boards and get created, like the ones you were talking about, or just by building those relationships and being top of mind, or freelancing. The other thing I was going to add is that for some specific professions and industries, there are those communities that are out there of those specific professionals, which
Hmm.
sometimes come in the form of a Facebook group, a Slack channel, or some kind of community forum. I think those are really interesting places to think about how you can build relationships with people, but many of them also have some sort of job function or job board. So one that comes to mind is productmanagerhq.com.
Hmm.
You go there, you're going to find a community of product managers, but they also will post job roles from time to time. So not only can you connect with people, but you can find opportunities to apply to jobs. So for some of those communities or some of those functions or industries that have those, I think that's a really good place to start. There's one for product marketing as well, for that matter. So I think just finding other channels and opportunities, to your point, I think it's only going to give you more chances to really connect with people or find jobs to apply to. And on that notion, one of the things you mentioned was kind of about gaining some additional experience. And I'm curious, because I know you've had to do this before. What if you're someone who is a career switcher of sorts, and you see a role that you're really interested in, but you don't necessarily have that experience? What can you do to maybe make yourself a more attractive candidate, so you give yourself a shot at being able to get one of those roles, even if maybe you don't have the title or the specific qualifications on paper?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, because I think a lot of people find themselves in this kind of chicken and egg situation where, oh, I really want to break into this career path or this role, but I don't have the experience. But if I never get the experience or a shot to do it, I'll never be able to break in. Um, and for me personally, like, my story behind like how to approach this really came from when I was transitioning from working at Walmart in the strategy and finance role, and trying to figure out how do I break into marketing and break into tech, and not having experience to really have done that. Um, for me, it came down to kind of really thinking about positioning myself in a very unique way where, I was able to sit down and say like, all right, here's the company that I'm interested in. Here's the problems that I think they need to, need help on. And here's where I'm going to go in and put together a kind of 90-day plan of if they were to hire me for this role, here are the things that I would do in the first 90 days to help solve these problems. And here's how I would, find success in that role. And for me, going through that process and actually getting hired for my role as a growth marketer at MindSumo, despite not having a lot of experience doing that type of work, it came down to just showing like I understood the problem, I'm prepared, I have a plan for the first 90 days. So for the CEO who didn't know me and would be worried about, hey, what am I going to give John to do? And when he first joins, that gave him the confidence of, okay, if I hire him, he'll be able to add value right away. He has a plan and knows what he's doing and can talk, confidently about, how can I create value for the company? And just another short story on top of that, when I was actually looking for, product management roles as part of my search, um, I went and applied to a role at Yelp, but actually never done product management before, would have like no chance at all to be able to actually get into that type of role. But, I went to a networking event, met one of their key like head of products at this event. And following that meeting with him, I actually sat down, went home and did, I spent 2 days just researching, the marketplace that he ran, looked at the competitors, looked at the features that they had on Yelp, looked at the competitors' features, and put together this kind of outline and this analysis of, here's what I think about the market, here's what I think about your product, here's how I would improve it, and sent that 2-page write-up to him and really impressed them. And it got me all the way up to the final round for interviews, even though I've never done product management before, had zero experience in it. But, by taking that route of really kind of digging into and showing like I understand the role, here's the value I can provide, and here's what I can do to offer, value to your company, that really opened a lot of doors to me where I did not have previous experience.
No, I think that's great. And I love the specific examples that you used in both scenarios, because I think this is an area where people struggle. They kind of know they know they have the gap, but they're not really sure how to close it. And I think both of those are really great examples of how you can overcome that gap and put yourself in a position to land one of those roles when you don't have that experience. So I guess my last question for you, we talked about a number of different things here, but I'm just curious, any other tips you can provide just in terms of, navigating a job search right now?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately we can't have in-person events, but, I think events in general are great because there's nothing beats like face-to-face interaction and being able to build a relationship and tell your story to someone. And a lot of times, like when you can find the right events, you can get in front of like either the recruiters or the direct hiring manager, and it really kind of opens some unique doors. Um, but I know that a lot of these groups are now doing virtual events, and I think they're still worth attending to find those different connections and those people who run those groups. So, for example, I'm interested in product marketing. There's this great group called ShareBird where the guy who runs it actually is very well connected to every tech company that you can think of and knows all the product marketers that are at these companies, and building a relationship with him and saying like, hey, here's my background, here's what I'm looking for, can you help? Like, this is an opportunity for you to leverage some of those kind of connections and be able to get people to help you and build that relationship with them. So I think for me, when it comes to the job search, it's all about relationships, getting that FaceTime or virtual FaceTime in to be able to really drive that. And I would say the second piece of it is, again, really being thoughtful and being flexible in terms of like, what are roles that may be doing similar work that isn't the same title that, I'm trying to shoot for. So for example, if I'm interested in product marketing, but I find something that doesn't say product marketing in the title of the job, but still does a lot of the same functions and the activities, being open to taking and looking into those types of roles, knowing that I can then take that experience and pivot into like product marketing later on in my career. So I'd say those are some quick tips that I would recommend.
Awesome, John. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for sharing some of those tips, particularly in terms of navigating job searches, and also for specifically for career transition.